Happy day 4 of 7 days of rest. Today we are talking about and introducing emotional rest. There has been an emergency with Kelly. She's okay, but she may or may not join this live, or we might do 2 separate ones just for today. Before I start, I'm just going to make sure I have this message up. Comment or DM rest to join our group chat for 7 days of rest. Now we are about halfway. Hopefully you've been able to learn new ways of resting and releasing and recovering. I have no AirPods today and I'm doing this in the car, so I hope audio quality is okay. Okay, so emotional rest. The color that she chose today is green, which I love. Emotional rest is an act of rest that helps you release your emotions, or an act of rest that will create space for your emotions. Examples include journaling, crying, venting to a friend, but asking for mutual consent to ensure that your friend or whoever you want to vent to has enough capacity to hold you as well, and not end up draining them or draining yourself to try and explain yourself to them, because we all know that can be really tiring and even more exhausting. And crying is my favorite way of releasing and taking emotional rest. It's about creating space, again, for your emotions and your feelings. Yeah, and the color she chose today is green. I will let Kelly add on more to this, but for me, green is the color of the heart chakra, which is right here. And from traditional Chinese medicine and other alternative and holistic references, the lungs actually hold the most grief. And yeah, I think that's all I have to add on to this. And so when you're unable to really express your feelings, you can hold it in your lungs, but also you feel it in your heart. That's why sometimes we can feel heartbreak. And there's a syndrome called, I think it's called Takotsubo syndrome, where like octopus is where they got the name from. Octopus, when they experience heartbreak, they will go into a state similar to death. So when our hearts get broken, when we feel hurt, when our feelings get hurt, we definitely do feel it in our physical body, and it translates into why people say heartbreak, because it literally feels like your heart is breaking, or there's someone just like stabbed you, or there's like a million needles that are being pinned into your heart, and it really hurts. Yeah. And for food that can help with this, going to supporting the heart chakra, I like eating my dark leafy greens, so like broccoli, kale, Brussels, spinach as well. Bok choy really helps. For myself personally, emotional rest has been a really important thing, just because growing up as the firstborn daughter in an immigrant Asian family, I was always told to hold my feelings, not to cry. There was this incident where I was constantly crying when I was a teen, and my dad didn't know what to do. He actually threatened and yelled at me and was like, if you keep crying, if you don't stop crying, I will tie your hands together. Because crying was interpreted as a really bad thing, but crying is a natural human response. We respond to something that makes us sad or excited or even angry, and tears just come out. Like first, then your nose starts feeling really like sour, and then you start crying. It just happens. Or if something's really spicy, like if you're eating wasabi, of course that's going to trigger you to cry and sniffle. So the message I have today is that like crying's not bad. I cried a little yesterday. I cry a little more when I watch Grey's Anatomy. I think sometimes when I watch specific anime, I also cry. When you're crying, know that you're doing the best for you and taking your emotional rest. Another example for me is I used to be in a long-distance relationship. The gap has been closed now, thankfully. And so every time after we separated, I would be extremely sad. And so going by what I do for myself and for my clients is, supporting the heart chakra, so dark leafy greens, because not only on an energetic side will it support your heart chakra because it's green, but on a science side, it contains a lot of calcium and magnesium, which is really important because your heart is one of the strongest muscles, or it is the strongest muscle you have in your body. So by consuming calcium and magnesium, you're supporting your heart directly by helping your heart muscle what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you can help it relax with magnesium, and you can help it flex. You can help it flex with calcium. So that's all I want to share with you today in regards to the heart chakra and taking emotional rest. If you want to join our 7 days of rest, I think we're going to be closing it off today or tomorrow. And again, the group chat will be open for 3 extra days just for anyone that wants more time on grasping the 7 types of rest and integrating into your life, or if you're starting a little late. So comment or DM rest to join our group chat for accountability, support, and some light coaching. See you tomorrow.
Hello. So today's live is a little bit different. Chanel already went live, so if you're watching the replay, then you're probably watching me stitched in. So I just want to say a little bit about the color green and emotional rest. So emotional rest has anything to do with giving yourself a space to hold yourself, to hold your emotions, to find a sense of peace and calm with your feelings. I think a lot of times we just kind of think okay, you need to keep moving and you need to keep moving. So I really think of emotional rest as a space of sort of like an oasis, a refuge, So in the specific art therapy technique that I teach, there are specific movements that are self-soothing movements. So for example, grabbing your hands, grabbing your arms, kind of stroking your arms, stroking your shoulders, things like that, are shown to be very beneficial in the sense of you sort of nurture yourself, you give yourself that embrace and that place of, okay, I'm safe to feel what I feel, So making those movements, making those little gestures can be very helpful. Another way that I would say you can get emotional rest is through going into nature. I always, when I go into the forest, I have this feeling of just a huge hug, and the color green is everywhere in the forest, for example. So you are surrounded by this color that naturally calms your nervous system. So when you're feeling kind of, overwhelmed, there's a lot going on, you're feeling kind of stressed, surrounding yourself in a green environment is one of the best things that you can do, And of course, there are so many other benefits as well, like the fresh air and the view, looking at natural environments naturally relaxes the body because we are creatures of nature. So yeah, in terms of the color green, as I said, green is a calming color, but green is also a mixture of blue and yellow. So blue was what we'll talk about tomorrow. But blue is actually really the only color that doesn't have a warm tone mixed in with it. So it's a very calming color. And then you've got green mixed with yellow. So yellow is inspiring. It helps you to focus. It can kind of boost your mental productivity. So in terms of green, there have been studies about how green actually improves people's creativity. So any sort of creative endeavor also, of course, if you see my content, I think that creative activity is such an emotional refuge because you find this place where you don't have to express yourself in words. And I think giving yourself that space just to be with your feelings and find a creative outlet, whether that be singing, I love to go and sing in the forest, for example, or painting of some kind. You can even, when you're in nature, you can find ways to do these things as well. You can paint with the rocks and the sticks and the mud, And I think like getting creative with the natural elements of the forest or whatever kind of natural environment you're close to really is a beautiful way to connect with your body, connect with your feelings, connect with this feeling of being held by nature, and this feeling of, you know what, I don't have to know everything. I don't have to understand everything. I think emotional rest is giving yourself the permission to move out of your mind, to move into your heart. So a meditation practice that I used to practice, that I used to do quite frequently, was basically you put your hand on your heart and you close your eyes and you smile and you just breathe and focus your energy on your heart. And what you find within that practice is a deep sense of calm, a deep sense of connection with your heart, and that sense of life that comes from your heart, you know? We're so focused on our minds sometimes, but our heart is really what is more deeply powerful in terms of keeping us alive, in terms of the electromagnetic field that our hearts create. So it's actually been shown that when you focus on your heart, the electromagnetic field expands. So people also feel that. People also pick up on that energy. So yeah, you can look that up. That's according to the HeartMath Institute. And another thing that I remembered in terms of emotional rest is anything to do with water. You know, so if you've ever looked into the Dr. Emoto, he did a really interesting study about water molecules and how different emotions actually change the shape and structure of the molecule. So anytime that you have the chance to, you know, immerse yourself in water, I think it's such a powerful way to find emotional rest, because our bodies are made of water. Our emotions do affect water. So there's that sense of cleansing that happens internally and externally. And a story that I was reminded of when I was thinking of emotional rest was the fact that I used to go swimming in a river every day. And I actually ended up inviting a lot of people to join me in swimming in this river. It was a really cold river, actually, and a lot of seawater would fill this river. And over time, you know, a lot of people were actually pretty skeptical. But over time, actually, I got quite a lot of people to go to the river, and it became something that was sort of like this space where, you know, I remember I had a friend who was struggling with insecurity about her body, you know, and she told me, I didn't know that just something as simple as going to the river could actually make me feel more confident, you know. And so just little things like that made me realize a lot about the power of nature, and specifically the power of water when it comes to emotional healing and finding that sense of emotional peace. You know, our emotions aren't meant to torment us. We're not meant to feel at a war with our emotions at all time. We're actually really meant to learn from our feelings and channel our feelings into things that help us to grow and, you know, generate some kind of insight and wisdom, you know. So our emotions are guides, they're leaders. And when you give yourself that space to connect with your emotions in nature, I feel like you really find this deep sense of rest, you know, and it gives you that space of, I don't actually have to understand this, you know. So yeah, basically to sum this up with emotional rest and the color green, when you feel overwhelmed by your emotions, something as simple as going into a green environment or just looking at the color green has been shown to stimulate creativity, and it calms the nervous system. So it might give you a way to find a creative outlet for your emotions while also finding a sense of calm, which is super key to actually being able to release your feelings. So yeah, that's all I want to say about emotional rest. And tomorrow we'll be covering the color blue and sensory rest. So I will see you tomorrow.